Happy New Year! It's Artifacts, a show that brings the arts in the Minneapolis area to you. On this edition, high quality woodworking with Ross Peterson and John Stumbras from Xylos Gallery.
Well, it's really organized as like a cooperative. There are 8 partners. We're all full-time furniture makers who do this for a living.
The challenge of three-legged race with David Moore and Morgan Thorson.
It's a work of new dance. It's a work of a political mind. It's a work of theatrical imagination. It's a work of landscape, and on and on and on. I'm very passionate about it.
Esther Granbois talks about new digs for the Rendezvous Ballroom.
I started with folk dancing just for the fun of it, just to have something to do and to get moving, and to, I like the sense of community with folk dancing. And I began taking classes in ballroom and jitterbug.
Karen Solgard plays the Hardanger fiddle. Plus, Gina Filigenzi asks people, what's your favorite winter arts activity? All this and more on Artifacts, January 2000. Here's your host, glad to be seen in Y2K, Phill Lindsay.
And welcome to the show. Here we are in the year 2000. Now, going home after a recent concert, waiting at an intersection for a stop sign to change, I started thinking about the arts, at least shows and work I've seen or read or heard recently, and I got to thinking about technique and craft and passion, and about content and quality and new things to say. You see, I'm frustrated. Heck, I get peeved when I encounter more craft and technique than innovation, when there's way too much therapeutic indulgence or offhanded irony than I see original or radical thought. Now, money, of course, is at the root of a lot of this. In the nonprofit realm, with some exceptions, funding encourages applying art to the current fixation of the establishment. In for-profit precincts, money drives a calculation for the lowest common denominator. The results of both systems often are full of style and craft and technique, like a mime with great moves and presence, but not a lot to say. Now, naturally, learning craft, practicing technique, indulging in distraction, these happen in an artist's salad days. When else? When better? And of course, we do have some fresh voices, true visionaries and independent spirits who are not playing to the dollar or each other, but they don't find a lot of encouragement. Let's resolve, perhaps, in this new year to counter the divisive and corrosive results of the current cultural funding patterns. Let's encourage creative minds in each artistic endeavor to pay more attention to the new, the challenging, the art coming from one another. And perhaps a more direct relationship with a broader audience might provide support and insight while it provokes and inspires. All this comes to me while I'm out waiting in the dark for a stop sign to change color. But of course, stop signs aren't semaphores. I was waiting for a signal when it was up to me to make a move. Meanwhile, on this edition of Artifacts, we're going to talk with some folks about quality, new endeavors, and tradition. I'll be back with Ross Peterson, John Stumbras, right after this clip from Krzysztof Kozlowski's The Decalogue. Stay tuned.
Flash! Mróz?
Gdyby ktoś umarł za granicą, to też by było ogłoszenie?
A może być. Za to się płaci. Jak zapłacisz, to drukują.
Dlaczego ludzie umierają?
Różnie. Na serce, na raka. W wypadkach ze starości.
mi chodzi o to, co to jest śmierć.
Śmierć? Serce przestaje pompować krew. Krew nie dociera do mózgu. Wszystko zatrzymuje się. Staje. Koniec.
A co zostaje?
Zostaje to, co człowiek zrobił. Pamięć o nim. Pamięć to chyba ważne. Pamiętasz, że ktoś dziwnie podskakiwał albo że był dobry? Pamiętasz jego twarz? Uśmiech? To, że nie miał zęba z przodu.
We'll get into this. It'll be fun, so thanks for being here. It's good. Well, what you just saw was a short clip, and I thought a compelling clip from the Decalogue by Krzysztof Kozlowski. That's running as a series from January 7th through the 16th at the Walker Arts Center, and I have to say it's very powerful stuff. Well, my first guests are Ross Peterson and John Stumbras. They're from the Xylos Gallery. Gentlemen, it's nice to have you here.
Hi.
I first heard about you folks from the Minnesota Crafts newsletter. I was very excited to hear about it, and you were nice enough to bring objects, examples of your work, and we're going to get into that in a moment. First of all, Xylos Gallery. What does the name mean, and where are you?
Well, we're located 50th and Xerxes in South Minneapolis.
Okay. Easy to find. That's
Yeah, it is.
big intersection over there.
Yeah, and actually, but part of us have been located there for probably 10 years. So.
Oh, okay. Some members of the.
Of the gallery.
Oh, all right.
Right.
Okay.
The name changed a couple of years ago.
Right.
And what does the name Xylos refer to?
It's a Greek combining form, xylo, like xylograph, xylophone, and we just threw the S on there because it sounded better than xylo.
It rolls off the
by
tongue a
itself.
little better.
Right.
Yeah.
It means
And
wood.
It means wood.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is what? Your stock and trade. I mean,
Right.
That's what you guys work on. Well, for those folks who aren't familiar, describe sort of the mission. What is it you're trying to accomplish at the Xylos Gallery? Do you want to just start and we'll...
Sure. Well, it's really organized as like a cooperative. There are 8 partners. We're all full-time furniture makers who do this for a living. And the purpose of the gallery is to create a showplace for us to be able to show our things and to be able to sell our things directly to the public.
Okay. And your background, both of you, how did you start out? What got you into this line of work?
Well, actually, I was a hobbyist probably about 10 years ago and just started concentrating more and more on designing and building furniture, and finally got to the point where I thought, well, this is viable marketing thing, so I made the step into that, and so I've been doing it full-time now for 2 years.
That's great. And your background?
It's not too dissimilar to Ross's. I started doing it as an avocation probably about 15 years ago. Had another career, but about 3 years ago decided that I was going to do this full-time and took the leap. And
Wow. And it's been working out?
yes,
And you're 2 of how many that are part of this cooperative?
there's 8 of us now.
8?
Yeah.
Okay. And who comes? Who are your customers? Who comes into Xylos? Or who do you hope comes into Xylos?
Well, a lot of people that just are in the neighborhood. It's right down around Lake Harriet and then south of Lake Harriet there. So there's a lot of folks from the Fulton neighborhood that just come by, drive-by traffic on 50th. And then we do a couple of shows. There's a show at the IMS Center that we do in the spring.
Oh, all right.
And also we do the Home and Garden Show. So we get our name out that way, so we get people that way. And then word of mouth is probably always the best.
Oh, I'm sure. And would it be accurate to say that people actually collect fine woodwork like this? Or are there some individuals who get familiar with a particular person's work and say, let's go down and see what John or Ross or someone else has got new? Does that happen?
Oh yeah,
Yeah?
yeah, that's true. I mean, there are certainly a number of pieces that we sell to people who are just have a strong interest in having handcrafted, wood furniture, and they will come and buy our pieces. But we also have people who have a real high appreciation for what I'd consider higher end pieces, and probably each of us have people who come back to us and want additional pieces over the years. So
One of the
it's
things
repeat
that I read about you folks is that part of your mission is to assure the folks that are coming in as customers about the quality and the nature of what it is that they're encountering here at Xylos. So that's pretty good. Well, without further ado, let's start maybe right here behind you, Ross. We've got a beautiful piece, and we'll let our cameras get around to them. But let's describe this larger object here first. And I believe this is one of your pieces.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Can you just describe it for our
Yeah,
viewers?
it's mahogany and lacewood with the Cocobolo inlay, and it's a stereo cabinet. It's got 5 shelves and a sliding
Yeah.
shelf in the bottom, and it's got a removable panel in the back and recessed shelves and everything, so it can be easily wired and things like that.
It's beautiful. And I'm hoping our cameras can get some of the detail in there. That lacewood, for instance, has some lovely lines through it and things like that. What's the piece right on top, too? That's an interesting
That's
object.
a turnbow by Alan Lacer.
Yeah.
We also have some consignment pieces in there, different artists from here and a few from around the country that just consign pieces, and he's a pretty well-known turner. He's the president of the American Turners Association, or Wood Turners
I would have never known there was such an association.
Right.
That's great.
That might be wrong. It's something like that, you know. But anyway, he's a well-known turner, and that's a turnbow, and the bark is actually still on the bowl. It's kind of a unique turning because the bark is still on the side of the tree, the way he turned it out of the tree.
Very impressive.
Thank
Very impressive. And coming around, by the way, we should mention, too, you're sitting on one of your chairs. I don't know, again, given our bodies that are on some of these things, if we can see much of that, but that's a lovely piece. Do you tend to make one type of furniture, or you explore the whole realm?
I guess I try to focus on stuff that I've designed. Well, I always build things that I've designed, and it's usually something that a customer wants. They give me vague guidelines, and then I have to try to interpret what they have
Sure.
into some concept of mine into a piece, so it can be nerve-wracking at times.
I can imagine, yeah, the challenge is there. What else do we have? This is a lovely piece right here in between us all. It's a lamp?
It's a highly original lamp by Ed Krause. It's made out of sculpted and figured walnut, if you can see down toward the bottom, and the top is made out of Paduke. And
It's a very dramatic
it's very
piece.
striking. Yeah.
That's actually a stone. The pull is a stone.
Just here.
Right. A little beach pebble.
Very nice. I like the balance to this whole piece. That's great. And I'm sitting on another wonderful chair. Who might have done this?
I did that.
Yeah, that's yours. All
I
right.
did that,
I
yeah.
wasn't aware.
Yeah, for years I made a lot of Windsor-style chairs, which is any chair with a spindle on the back. And this is more of a contemporary version.
I like the lines. It's beautiful. And the color here.
Thank you.
And then beside me here, I see a box. Is this a jewelry box?
Jewelry box by Peter Wright. It's got a pretty unique sculptured walnut top.
Yeah, there's some topography to that.
A lot of
It's really
topography.
quite pleasing there. Is that by design or just the
Oh,
way
yeah.
the wood presented itself, I suppose?
A lot of his pieces, all of his pieces have a real relationship to the tree.
Yeah.
I mean, you can definitely see it came out of the tree.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. And there's a gorgeous table behind me. And again, I think our cameras can probably get part of this, but enough maybe to do the justice to it that it deserves. What can you tell me about this piece?
Well, this is an 18th century pie crust Philadelphia-style table by Pat Belargin. I think it does a really good job of showing the range of things that we have and the range of skills that exist in our store. Pat does a lot of really high-end reproductions, of this style of work. And if the camera can get it, I mean, it's just highly detailed and bold carving on the legs. And
Yeah, the detail work and the tradition that's inherent in a piece like this
yes.
versus some of the more modern and contemporary
Right,
pieces that are
right.
also in your shop there. Am I missing anything that we're sitting at? Because I know we've got this lovely piece right in front of me here, which is a sweet piece here. This is maple?
Right. The top is curly maple
Yeah.
with several different layers of dye and things on it to make it. In fact, maybe I can try tipping it a little bit.
Yeah, hold that for a second there. You were mentioning, too, that this is
Right.
recycled?
This is recycled Douglas fir. It comes from Duluth. They tore down some factories up there and warehouses, and they recycled the fir out of the timbers. And so it's really, it's old growth, really fine grain, really straight.
Yeah.
Beautiful wood.
And I know a lot of folks appreciate having something that has the story behind it or something that they know more about it than simply its utility. So that's a nice feature of that. And as we're putting them back here, these are some of the tools of the trade that you folks work with. You want to talk about a couple of these, maybe? So what do you have here? This looks like an old standard that I might have seen in my shop class.
Well, these are some of the basic hand tools that we all use, and we all have basic machinery too, and that's required when you do this for a living. But we all use a lot of hand tools and are skilled in that. And the things are made in a custom way, so they have to be fine-tuned when you make them. So this is a hand plane, a basic wooden hand plane. It's called a smoothing plane.
And has some nice detail to itself.
It does, yeah. There's long history and tradition about how these are made. This is a European wooden plane.
Oh, all right.
And it's a little chewed up because I use it every day.
This is a working tool.
A working
Not a
tool.
museum piece.
Right.
That's great. And this looks unique to me.
This is a Japanese hollowing plane. It's made in the Japanese tradition. These blades are all forged by master blacksmiths by hand. They hammer them out of old boat anchors and stuff that they got in World War II probably, or before. I think some of their most cherished wood iron comes from way back in the 1800s when the,
So
ship
again, the
anchors and
tradition
stuff. Right.
moves forward.
And it's just it's round in two directions, so it can be
Yeah.
it can be used to hollow a surface.
And we use it to scoop out like a chair seat or do some fine
right.
tuning
Like the one you're sitting
on.
Sure.
Yeah.
And this that I think you just put that down. What?
That's a cutting gauge that's used. It's got a sharp blade there, and it's used to mark lines prescribed distance from the edge of a piece. So you would, if you want to cut a line, you would cut a line. It's used for dovetailing and different processes like that.
And this is a spoke shape, which was used exclusively to do all the spindles on the chair that you're sitting on. So it's really, all those spindles are hand whittled using that tool.
This just proves my my lack of knowledge about these tools. Someone could hand this to me and say, "Save your life," and I would say, "Let me go down to Xylos and get a guy to help," because I would have no idea how to work with this. And I must say, even visually, I wouldn't connect this necessarily with this myself. But thank you. That's great. How old is Xylos? How long has it been in this form as a gallery?
It's probably been about 18 months that it's in the current form of being a cooperative with a number of different partners who equally share responsibility.
Yeah. And what was the motivation to create this? I mean, I'm guessing you knew one another professionally, or had you all worked together somehow before?
Probably the meeting point was the Minnesota Woodworkers Guild, which is a large organization pushing 500 members now. And that's a both amateur and professional organization, and we met through different functions there, and those of us that had vested interest in making it a profession kind of just tried to get together and make it put the gallery together so that we had a place to show things, because it's very typical for a custom woodworker to not have anything to show anybody. They build it and they deliver it, and you don't have anything, or you might have a piece in progress in your shop, and it's a bad place to show. So by having a gallery, you have a place to go, and people can come and see it.
Well, congratulations. We're just out of time, but I want to make sure that if people want to get hold of you all in the Xylos Gallery, they can call a phone number.
Yeah, it's area code 612, and it's 922-1702.
Okay, and that's the Xylos Gallery, Xerxes at about 50th.
50th and Xerxes.
Okay, South Minneapolis. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thanks for sharing with us the beautiful work, too.
Thank you.
Real pleasure. Well, we'll have our monthly news bits right after Gina Filigenzi goes out and asks people about their favorite winter arts activities. Stay tuned.
Okay, we've made it through the holidays, and it is now the year 2000, and we're all still here. So let's see what kind of arts-related things Minneapolitans are doing in the winter. Come on. What kind of artsy things do you like to do in the winter?
Artsy things, plays, performing plays. That's the main thing, I think.
What is your favorite artsy thing to do in the winter?
Artsy thing to do in the winter? What's an artsy thing to do in the winter? I'm doing really bad. Paint a picture.
I'd have to say making the little snowflakes that you cut in and out. You make it snowflakes, make a chain.
Artsy thing? I vegetate in the winter. I sit in my chair and watch TV.
Gosh, I don't know. Go out and make snowmen in the sun. Maybe like inside or outside. Decorating cookies.
What is your favorite winter arts activity?
Making snow angels. Arts, I'd probably go to movies. I guess that's it.
Do in the winter, probably ice skating.
And that's Food for Thought. I'm Gina Filigenzi reporting for Artifacts. See you next time.
And now for our monthly news bits. Dozens of art masterpieces by the likes of Manet, Renoir, and Toulouse-Lautrec were found in a Swiss safe recently. Manet's great-niece, Anne-Marie Ruart, apparently stashed a collection worth millions of dollars. She died in 1993, and at least 4 valuable works remain missing. The Paris art world is said to be stunned by recent claims of theft and fraud. The U.S. government banned imports of archaeological artifacts from Cambodia last month. Cambodia requested the action because of damage and looting at the famous temples at Angkor. Chisels and chainsaws reportedly were among the tools of destruction. And closer to home, Deanna Cummings is the new program director for Hennepin and Anoka counties at the Metropolitan Regional Arts Council. Cummings began her position last month. Previously, she managed for 5 years Juxtaposition, a North Minneapolis arts organization, and she has also worked with the State Council on Black Minnesotans since 1993. And that's the Artifacts News Bits for January 2000. I'll be back with David Moore, Morgan Thorson, right after this art quote from Oliver Wendell Holmes. Like we're the best of friends, so here I go. And welcome back. You are watching Artifacts, and I'm Phill Lindsay, and I'm excited because our next guests are here to talk about three-legged race. They're working on some challenging projects. David Moore and Morgan Thorson are here. David, it's nice to see you again.
Greetings, Phil.
Nice going on the project here. It's pretty good. Morgan,
Hi.
nice to have you on the
see
show. This is good. And Morgan's a choreographer, and I know you're working on an upcoming project, and I guess you've been working with these folks for a while. But let's start with the name, Three-Legged Race. What's that all about? What's that mean?
Well, it's a name obviously selected personally by me for this new company that we've started. I like it because it has a lot of associations. But Three-Legged Race is a creative developmental producer, and we're concentrating in new theater, new performance and performance art,
All right.
new circus arts, new dance, and new puppetry and object theater,
Yep.
and their mixtures.
Oh.
And the most important thing of all, in approaching those arts and the artists here in the Twin Cities that we engage to reach higher, the most important thing of all is a spirit of adventure and fun. And what the heck, you know, it's 1996 and we're starting this small company, and what are we going to call it? And it was lists and lists and lists, and eventually we landed on this as a name that means something a little different to everyone, to each person. And, but for me, it's about fun and adventure and trying and failing and trying again.
I love it. That's great. See, when I get three-legged, I start thinking, kind of harking back to our last segment, you know, something that forms a plane. You've got a stable base there. You've got,
yes.
And yet with race, there's that tension
The
with something
three-legged
kinetic.
stool,
So there you go. You got the stool, you got the platform,
the
and
race,
you
but
move
also
on.
tying the legs together in collaboration, which
That's
is
what I think of.
fundamental in the arts and in the performing arts.
Yeah, and that's exciting as I hear about the projects you're working on and as I read your materials, that collaboration, working in the best sense of the word, at the margins where disciplines kind of come together and things can happen kind of magically. It's pretty good. And now your background, Morgan, is as a choreographer. At least that's how I've heard of you over the years here in the Twin Cities. What are you working on here, and how do you see yourself fitting in with this vision that David just explained?
Well, David invited me to show some work at one of his showing venues. And basically, I've been out in the community trying to create work on my own for the last 6 years, 5 or 6 years. And David and I met through our mutual love of dance and performance, and would run into each other at various venues around town. And basically, David invited me to show his work on the faith that he thought that not only could he support me developmentally, but also based on what he had seen me perform in the past, that he thought the work would be of a certain quality that he would feel comfortable supporting. So based on those two things, we formed a relationship to, you know, further my piece, Toe the White Line, which I started a couple of years ago.
Oh, wonderful. Well,
It's an amazing piece. An
Okay.
amazing
Tell you what,
piece.
as long as we get you both here,
Okay.
David, why don't you take just a brief crack at describing it as you envision it, and then maybe from the creative person herself, we can hear from her. What's your take on it?
It's Morgan's next piece. It's going to be one of the biggest pieces that Morgan has done. It's a work of new dance. It's a work of a political mind. It's a work of theatrical imagination. It's a work of landscape, and on and on and on. I'm very passionate about it.
Sounds
and
good.
I've just seen it on tape.
Wow.
But I've seen lots of Morgan's work live, of course.
Yeah. And how would you, I mean, does that resonate with?
It does. I would say that it's a departure for me. I've done one rendition of this piece that was very much about movement exploration around some physical ideas, that have to do with power.
Does that tie in with the political comment David made?
Yeah, and the aspect, what I'm looking at is taking power from a dynamic between people and different classes, privilege. So, and I really put it in a very literal physical form, one person overpowering another, and I created a bunch of phrases from that. So at this next level, this next approach into this topic, I'm really trying to be not more didactic, but I want to give more of an entry point into the work, so it's not just abstract dance. So I am working in a more theatrical realm. I'm working from image-based movement development, not only just problem solving and phrase building, but from image-based movement, and also I'm going to be using text and improvisation to kind of flush out this piece that's really about the moment when you shift value systems, when you can no longer go back because you've had the epiphany.
And you're speaking for an individual.
Yeah, for an individual.
Yeah.
And I think that particular experience resonates for a lot of people, but particularly when you see that you have perhaps been contributing to a problem and you no longer want to contribute to a problem, you want to be a part of the solution. That kind of transformation, that kind of value shift.
So, good opportunity to stretch a little bit, sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah, with this
and it's scary.
Yeah?
Yeah, it really
And that's part of what you're trying to provide.
Yes, Morgan's work is just thrilling.
Yeah.
It's just thrilling, and it's such an honor for Three-Legged Race to be able to help in this little way. It's a piece she's already been working on for quite a few months now. We're going to be one-way station for this piece, and it's going to go on. Morgan is an independent producer as well as an artist, and she's going to take this on, I trust, a very long distance to great things. What's also exciting for Three-Legged Race is that we will serve Morgan's work in February on the piece at the same time as we serve 3 other artists. 1 other in dance and 2 others in new theater.
Okay.
And that conjunction should be very, very interesting, certainly for each of the 4 artists. You know, hey, what are you doing? Oh, I've never seen this before. This is so different.
Yeah.
But, oh, you're doing what I'm doing. I hope.
Yeah.
I hope. That is our gamble
Yeah.
in bringing these 4 together. And of course, we want to share it with our audience the end of the month.
Well, this leads me back to some comments I made at the beginning of this show, and that is my sense that artists and presenters, producers, would be of greater service if they did exactly the kind of thing that you 2 are working on. I love that notion of breaking a few boundaries and at the same time reaching maybe a deeper level, if you will, of content. As I mentioned at the start of the show, I'm worried that we're getting a lot of technique and craft out there, and the content is sort of being left beside. And the technology, I didn't mention this, but technology tends to be outpacing what it is we all have to say. You certainly see that in the media arts and things like that. So this is very exciting. I validate this. Where do these things happen? You mentioned Morgan's piece end of February, and where will that happen?
Yeah, Three-Legged Race's studio, the studio we're going to call it, will perform it 4 times the last weekend of February. And we're going to use the Nancy Hauser Theater, top floor theater, a wonderful, wonderful facility. It's above Birch Pharmacy at the intersection of Franklin and Hennepin.
Yeah, just the beginnings of South Minneapolis down there.
Just south of the Guthrie Theater.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Exciting. What motivated you to do this? You've been very articulate about what it is you're trying to do, but in the middle 90s back there where you're thinking, hey, I'm ready for something new, David, what was it that stirred in your mind to try and do something like this?
Well, a lot of things. Gratitude to this community. I've been here now a little over a decade and have been given so much. Wanted to give something back. Wanted to give something back that would be unique and a strong investment in the greater potential of the performing arts in the Twin Cities. I think that this is a very hot performance town, a very hot dance and puppetry town and so on, and that more opportunities are needed for these local artists to step up the pace, to reach higher, and to work together more frequently than they might otherwise. Three-Legged Race is also going to take care to fully produce, at least once a year, at least 1 piece, because those in the know and working artists will often say correctly, I think, that this is a developmental town. This is a town where you can start a piece and grow the piece but you may or may not be able to finish the piece as far as bringing it to the maximum audience in its maximum realization, its full realization. And so Three-Legged Race's commitments, while much of it is developmental, workshop performances and commissions and so on, we also, at least once a year, will fully produce a piece.
Who do you hope will come to your particular work?
Well, I'm really targeting other producers because I want to kind of use this event as a stepping stone to perhaps show it in another more completed, more saturated, more fully realized version in another year or so beyond this. So I'm going to invite a lot of producers. I'm also really connected to the women's community and the lesbian community, and so I'm going to try to get a lot of those people there, as well as my peers, my other, artists that I associate with and know about, but perhaps don't have a direct relationship with. Okay. And then the neighborhood. I really believe in trying to have an awareness of the people in the neighborhood in which we're performing.
Literally in the vicinity.
Yeah. So like in the Wedge neighborhood, I'll make a direct effort to like do some hands, flyering or direct mailing or something, because it's so important to me that there's a connection there.
And one would think that goes back to your notion of power and empowering people, in this case at the grassroots level, to say, come on in and be part of it.
Yeah, so
good.
A wide variety of people.
Well, good. Best of luck on that. Dave, we have just a moment left. I want to make sure that if people want to get in touch with Three-Legged Race and find out about Morgan's project and the others that you're involved in, there's a phone number they can call. Can you tell us?
It's both our office and it's our box office line. It's 612-332-3200.
Great. Well, we'll have that up on the screen. So, Morgan, thank you.
Thank
nice
you.
to have you on the show.
Yeah.
David, good to see you. Keep up the good work. That's great. Well, now later we're going to have Karen Solgard here playing her Hardanger fiddle. But next we've got Esther Granbois. She runs the Rendezvous Ballroom, and she'll be with me right after this art fact. Stay with us. Well, that is a cool use of public space. At least I think so. Esther Granbois is the guiding light of the Rendezvous Ballroom, and I'm pleased you're here.
Nice to be here.
In fact, you and I have kind of been talking on and off for about a year because you've had a bit of an odyssey finding the right space, actually finding any space for your Rendezvous Ballroom. But well, before we do that, what is the Rendezvous Ballroom? What goes on there? What do you do?
It's a place for people like you to come and dance.
You're going to get me moving, aren't you?
To take classes and to practice what you've learned and to come on a Friday or Saturday night and enjoy music.
Well, that's great. Now, what kind of dance particularly?
All different types of social dancing: salsa, merengue, swing, ballroom.
Oh, all right. So it's a wide arrangement
Right.
here of what people can come in and learn. And then what goes on? You said on the weekend nights, it's not so much classes, but it's enjoyment. It's
Right.
Yeah.
Time to dance, practice what you've learned.
in more of a performance setting. I mean, you're just having fun doing it. You're not
Right.
being taught the steps so much.
Right. People can come with or without a dance partner, and get to know each other.
And then there's the rendezvous right there. Where did you get the name, Rendezvous Ballroom?
Actually, Lance Banishak, a choreographer, he and I were tossing names around, and it's a name that was used back in the 1930s and 40s.
Okay.
And,
I think there was a famous rendezvous ballroom of some sort in Southern California, too, that I've heard of years ago and stuff like that. So that's kind of neat. I remember Lance, he was on the show quite a few years ago. Is he still out performing and dancing?
Yes, he is. He has a performance troupe, and he teaches classes at the Rendezvous as well.
Oh, well, great. Okay, so you're one of the teachers.
Right.
And Lance, who else is involved?
Christina Larson teaches flamenco, which is totally different than most of the other things.
A little more
that I do.
percussive there. That's great. But that's fun. I mean, that's people paying attention to that kind of dance. And we have to say now, where did you end up? Because this is a new space. Just the
Right.
last couple months, you've been where?
2524 Nicollet Avenue, right in the heart of the East Street area of South
Excellent.
Minneapolis.
Yeah. And I wasn't kidding. I mean, I think I met you maybe not quite a year ago because you were out searching Minneapolis, scouring Minneapolis for the appropriate place to put this. And could you just outline for me what that search was all about? Because you had certain needs. I mean, any old space wouldn't do for the kind of space you needed.
Right. For dance, you want a hardwood floor, a space with no pillars, wide open, something that's accessible. And
meaning preferably maybe like on ground floor or something so people can come right on in?
Right, and a place that people can find.
Oh, yeah, that helps too. That's right, yeah. And on East Street, that helps.
Yes,
you know.
yes, I'm really excited about that area.
Right, kind of downtown Whittier there, South Minneapolis. Well, congratulations. But I mean, I know you were looking all over town. Now, you had a space earlier east on Lake Street.
Yes, I did.
And that, for various reasons, fell through, and then you went out on the hunt. Difficult to find the right space. Yeah. Your background. Before I knew you, I would have assumed that anybody who can teach dance probably has to have been dancing since she was 3, and that's not true in your case.
No.
What brought you to dance?
I started with folk dancing just for the fun of it, just to have something to do and to get moving, and I like the sense of community with folk dancing. And I began taking classes in ballroom and jitterbug, and I auditioned for Lance Benishek's troupe. That's when I met him.
Okay.
And
that was all here in the Twin Cities?
Right,
okay.
right. Although that troupe at that time was located in Hudson.
Oh, all right. Okay. So is there a lot of this sort of dance that goes on? I think for a lot of folks that don't dance one way or the other, and they think dance, they probably think of the Nutcracker or some of the classic dance forms. And again, they're probably not out on point themselves. Is there a lot of the kind of dance? Is that a popular activity here in the Twin Cities?
Yes, I think it is. Swing dancing especially, and now salsa and merengue is getting to be more popular.
Oh, is that right? I didn't realize that. Is that partly the influx of more of a Hispanic community in the city, or is it kind of a trend that just happens and comes and goes in a wave, what people get interested in?
It's probably a combination of factors, but I think I agree with what you said.
Okay, that's fine. Now, you wear a number of different hats besides the beret. You also are a photographer and a painter. Now, tell us a little bit about that background. Is this something you were trained in, either of those forms?
I went to Bethel College and the University of Minnesota and took studio arts and graphic design classes, and had my own graphic design business for a while. And I still do photography and paint when I have a chance, although owning your own business kind of consumes all of your time. So.
Well, and that's the other half of what you do. I mean, there's the movement and the dance and the art of it, but then there's running the business.
Right.
How does that balance out in your life? I mean, is that a happy mix for you? Do you enjoy the business side, or is that sort of a necessary challenge that you have to meet?
It's a real learning experience for me. It's kind of stepping out of my comfort zone. I'm used to working by myself, doing my own thing, and as an artist, a visual artist. And so it's learning a lot about marketing and about accounting and
zoning codes and all that sort of thing. Well, what motivated? I mean, if you were at one point in your life happy with your painting and the photography you're doing, and you avocationally you enjoyed going out and dancing, what sparked the idea of maybe opening up a facility and taking on all that business? What led you to that decision?
I had been teaching dance in community ed, Minneapolis community ed, for several years, and I had the opportunity where there was a space available, and people urged me to try it, and I did.
All right.
So I just kind of hopped into it.
No pun intended. Do you do the Lindy Hop? Is that one of your dances?
Yes, I do.
That's great. Do you have a favorite dance? What if someone said you can only do one or maybe two, which ones would you put in the time capsule and hope to be doing for the next 30 years or 40 years?
I'd say the Lindy Hop and salsa.
Oh, seriously? Okay. Well, those are. How would you describe those? I mean, the Lindy Hop, they're both fairly energetic dances, but they come out of very different traditions, or am I wrong?
Yes. Lindy Hop started back in 1927 after the Charles Lindbergh's flight and named
And he
after
made the big
him,
hop
right,
over the,
yes.
the Atlantic there.
And it's a very grounded to the earth kind of dance.
No pun intended, huh? I was kind of thinking there might be a lot of sliding and kind of cruising and that, okay. So that was created to commemorate or to celebrate kind of his feat, really?
No.
No.
No, not created that way, but...
It was just contemporaneous with...
As the story goes, I forgot his name, Charles Snowden, I believe, was asked what the dance was called, and he just came up with that.
So the dance was already
moment, right.
happening,
It already
and
existed.
he probably had a newspaper rolled up somewhere, and he said, well, that's the Lindy Hop. That's great. And your other favorite dance, what did you say, is the...
Lindy Hop and salsa.
And salsa. Now, how did you get exposed to the salsa? Was that just here in the Twin Cities as well?
Right.
Okay. Where else do you go to learn? I mean, you teach, but also you must need to infuse yourself with new dances, or dances that you don't know already. Do you get that from each other, from Lance, or do you travel to do that?
From people in town like Lance, and also people like Frankie Manning, who is one of the fathers of the Lindy Hop, comes to town every couple of years and gives workshops.
And he's based out east or somewhere.
Right, in New York.
Okay. Do you bring people to the Rendezvous Ballroom for those sort of presentations?
Not nationally, but I do work with others. In fact, recently we had some Argentine tango workshops that another gentleman organized and hosted at the Rendezvous.
At the Rendezvous, well, that's exciting. We've got a couple moments left. Who comes to the Rendezvous? I guess you'd call them customers. Who are the aficionados of dance? Who likes to do this stuff?
People of all ages, teenagers through retired people, people like yourself.
You really want to get me up and
Yes,
dancing,
I
don't
do.
you? Well, I'll promise you, if we don't do it now, because we're kind of tethered with this, I'd love to have you come back, maybe with a partner or two, and show us the real way to do a turn. I don't know if it's the Lindy Hop or whatever, and then I will be brave enough to essay a few taps. Now, if family is watching, you might not want to catch that show, but that's great, so I'll take you up on that. But you say the average person sometimes comes in of all ages and backgrounds?
Right, right. People who haven't tried dancing before and just want to start, see if it's something that they would enjoy. Maybe their husband or wife has said, let's go out dancing. And
It's kind of a couple's thing sometimes, that sort of thing?
yes, although you can come by yourself.
Okay. And I know that movies sometimes can start a trend, because wasn't swing, I mean, swing has been around for a long time, but it seems to me, if my memory's right, about 5 years ago, swing became really hot, became kind of a trend. Do you see that? Does that happen, that Arnold Schwarzenegger suddenly does something meaningful on screen, and then 2 months later you're asked to do classes or something? Do you get that influence from Hollywood?
Yes, that helps.
Any trend that you're seeing now that maybe people haven't heard of? The latest craze, the most popular thing maybe?
I would say Ricky Martin and his music
That hot Latin
have
stuff.
helped, yes.
Yeah, pretty dynamic. Good.
Back a couple of years ago with the Gap commercial, the Swing Gap commercial.
Yes, yes.
We saw an influx of swing dancing.
They always seem to have good choreography in their commercials. I
Yes,
like what
they
I see.
do.
Esther, we're just out of time. One of the easiest ways that people can get a hold of you is to get in touch with you through an email address. And if you could rattle that off, we'll get it up on the screen. And this is for the Rendezvous Ballroom.
ourballroom@usa.net.
Would you say that one more time for the folks that are scribbling that down?
Sure. ourballroom@usa.net.
Thanks, Esther.
Thank you.
Best of luck at the Rendezvous.
Thank
nice
you
to have
very
you
much.
here. Well, we'll be back with our next guest, Karen Solgard. She'll be playing the Hardanger Fiddle. Stay tuned. This will be very nice.
As la buskan de her små, de er full ut av nettar. Dansa fint den menninga drøssa, så frys du ikke på fotan. Dansa fint den menninga drøssa, da frys du ikke på fotan.
That was wonderful. Karen Solgard, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know, as I'm listening to this beautiful music, the word transport comes to mind. It really sends me somewhere. That's beautiful. Would you pronounce correctly the name of this instrument? Because I've been mispronouncing
Okay.
it all through the show.
Well, in English, people say Hardanger.
That's
but-
what I've been saying.
Yes, and it's actually pronounced Hardanger, as in ding dong bell.
Okay.
Hardanger.
And it comes from a particular part of Norway?
Yes. The Hardanger fiddle comes from a region of Norway that surrounds the Hardanger Vida, and there's a district in Norway also called Hardanger. So that's where the name comes from.
And you happen to have personal family roots?
I
back
do.
there.
I have, my fiddle from my family comes from Vinja, Telemark, and I also wear the native clothing from that area as well.
Oh, it's beautiful, and so is the music. And you perform here, based in the Twin Cities, you're Minneapolis-based?
Yes, I'm Minneapolis-based. I grew up in Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I know you have a big event coming up in early February. Can you tell our viewers what that is and where?
We have a Norwegian family dance, and it's something I do with 2 dancers, and we call ourselves Big the Folk, which means village people. And we perform, we sing, we play, and they dance, and then we have everybody gather around and do some dancing in the old way. Before there was multimedia, people entertain themselves a lot by going to social dances, and that's what we try to revisit with our event.
Well, great. And when is it? And it's a benefit, too.
It's a benefit for the Minnesota Waldorf School, their capital campaign. It's on Saturday, February 5th at 7:30 p.m. at the Minnesota Waldorf School, and that's at Fairview and County Road B in Roseville.
That sounds great. And if people want to get more in touch with you or the Association for the Hardanger Fiddle,
Yeah.
there's a web address?
Yes, the Hardanger Fiddle Association of America has a website. It's www.hfaa.org.
And from that, they can link
They
to the
can
local.
link. There's links to all the local affiliates around the country, and they can say they want to go to Minnesota, and then they would see the website for the group that I am the chair of called the Twin Cities Hardingfela, because we say Hardanger Fiddle in English, but in Norwegian it's Hardingfela.
Okay, and then you can get events.
Events
listed
about,
there.
they can hear about what's going on in the Twin Cities.
Karen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you on.
Yes.
That's great. Well, now stay tuned. I'll be back to wrap and chat a little bit at the end of the show right after our monthly events calendar. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this edition of Artifacts. I know I did. We had some great guests on. A couple of things to mention, things going on out in the community. If you are an artist or an art, craft, community, or neighborhood group, you are invited to get in touch with the Minneapolis Arts Commission. They have a program with the mayor's office to exhibit works there. VSA Minnesota has been providing me with updated lists of accessible performances. And just to mention a few, there are many, many more than this. The Jungle Theater will be presenting Under Milkwood January 6th, and they will have American Sign Language at that performance. Outward Spiral Theater Company, performing at the Hennepin Center for the Arts, will present The Most Fabulous Story Ever Told. And now on January 21st, it will be audio described, and they'll have American Sign Language at a performance on Saturday the 22nd. And one more to mention, Burning House Group. They'll be at the Loring Playhouse. Their show is Whirligig, Life in Perspective 101, and that will be audio described on Sunday, January 16th. So if that's useful, I hope so. Now, some of you may be aware that Bobby McFerrin has joined the faculty over at the university's music department, School of Music. He's the creative chair at the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra. This coming spring, he will be teaching a seminar on improvisation and creativity. He'll also be working with the University Orchestra and their Symphonic Wind Ensemble. So that's a great opportunity over there. And for those of you who love the Fringe Festival, very successful 1999. They've announced the dates for later this year. The Fringe 2000 dates are July 27th through August 6th. And they have a new number for the Fringe, and that's 612-872-1212. And of course, we do have our Artifacts hotline, 673-2234. Call if you'd like to know a little bit more about the guests or the activities that we've been talking about on this edition. And on a personal note, this wraps up my 9th year of doing Artifacts, and it's been a slice. I'm Phill Lindsay. Peace.